My name is Mr. Provost. I'm a history teacher here. Mr. Bear is a history teacher as well, and we're taking over this veterans program. And what is a veterans program? It's a day for veterans to come to Shawnee High School. We've been doing this for over 20 years, and you know, it's a great opportunity for the veterans to interact with you guys and you guys to interact with the veterans. So with that being said, thank you for coming down, and please give your undivided attention to these veterans. No cell phones, that's a big thing. And hopefully you can take away something from this. All right, so without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Colonel Mr. Bob von Bargen, who is head of the Armed Forces Heritage Museum, but also the liaison between the veterans and ourselves. So thank you.
Well, we're pleased. Is this working? Hello, can you hear me? Okay, we're pleased to be here today. It's been a really wonderful day of sharing experiences, and we'd just like to continue that right now. It's my honor to introduce Lieutenant Colonel John Casey. John served as an Air Force navigator. He was an aerial port squadron commander, and he wears many hats. He is the Air Force Academy Liaison Officer and the Air Force ROTC Liaison Officer. He helps students get into the ROTC program and into the Air Force Academy. He is a director at the Air Force Heritage Museum. He is a retired project manager from Bell Laboratories and a former teacher of mathematics at Flemington High School in New Jersey. In Flemington, New Jersey. He leads our museum effort in education and Veterans Affairs. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce my longtime friend, Lieutenant Colonel John Casey.
Well, I want to start off by thanking my mentor here. Colonel von Bargen was my mentor when I first joined the Air Force Reserves back in this, I won't tell you how long ago, but it was a long time ago. I want to thank him for inviting me down here. Also, your teachers, Mr. Provost and Mr. Bear, for their excellent planning today. I'm going to spend a few minutes here talking about the significance of a veteran's military service. Now, as Colonel von Bargen mentioned, I'm a retired teacher. So I like to get my classes engaged. It's kind of hard to do when you're in an auditorium like this. But I am going to ask questions, and but I'm going to state the rules of engagement here. When I ask a question, you're not allowed to shout out. You have to raise your hand, and then I'm going to call on you, okay? So let me go back to my resume here. Again, I'm John Casey. I spent 30 years in the Air Force, retired in the grade of Lieutenant Colonel. I say I'm retired and I'm still serving. See if I get this thing to work. Okay, I am retired, but I also work with students who are interested in going to the Air Force Academy. We're applying for Air Force ROTC scholarships. And my objective today is to help you understand and appreciate military service of veterans. I hope to get you to be able to recognize the importance of the sacrifices that the families of veterans put up with. And I would like you to be cognizant of what it really means to honor veterans when you say, thank you for your service. There are a couple recurring themes that I'm going to touch on as I go through today. One of them is education. That's where you are right now. And education is where I started in the Air Force. I went through basic training. I went through officer training school, and it's extremely important. I'll take it seriously. Teamwork, also a recurring theme for all veterans. Your ability to work with others, a diverse group. Leadership. Okay, wherever you are, even here in high school, there are opportunities for you to become a leader of your team or your club, and that'll continue. as you graduate and whatever you decide to do, whether you go in the military or not. Leadership opportunities are wonderful, and you should try to take advantage of them. I'm going to start a little bit with sacrifices that veterans have made, and I'm going to start engaging you here right now. How many people, and this is a raise your hand type question, how many people in here know a veteran? Quite a few, okay? How many people have a family member that's a veteran? Okay, also quite a few. And so you know, some of you know some of the sacrifices. Can I ask somebody to give me an example of a sacrifice that a military veteran has done from what you know as a member, knowing members of the military? Raise your hand. I'm going to repeat it so everybody can hear. They're willing to give their life. Is that what you said? Say it again so I got it right. Giving time from their life. Yep, exactly. Anybody else? All of you know some veterans, so let's think about the sacrifices that they performed. Yes. They were apart from their families. Yes. Go ahead. Say it again. They sacrificed their safety. Yes, exactly. So, because I'm going to be limited on time here, I'm not going to go around, but you all know veterans. All of you who know veterans have an appreciation of the sacrifices and the service they gave. How about the families of veterans? How many people, a lot of people raise their hands, you're a family member of a veteran. Give me an example of a sacrifice that a family member of a veteran had to perform. Go ahead. Okay. I want to thank you for your sacrifice. And I always emphasize when I'm out talking about this and the sacrifices and the service of veterans is the families also deserve a special recognition because they sacrifice mostly time, birthdays, soccer, games. Anybody else have a different example? How did your family sacrifice when your family member was serving? Anybody else have another example? Anybody? Values. You know, one of the common threads of veterans is that they share a set of core values. And I have 4 services up here. The Air Force core values. I'm most familiar with them because I'm an Air Force officer and I spent 30 years in the Air Force. Integrity first, service before self, and excellence all we do. That was drilled into me from the day I went to basic training back in 1970. And it's part of my life. If you look at the other services, and we have a lot of representatives up here, thank you guys and ladies for your service, family members, SYLVIA. We have a lot of commonality. If you look across there, can anybody tell me, you see any value that's common between the 4 columns there? I'm having a hard time seeing from up here. Anybody? If you raise your hand, give me a signal. How about go ahead. Honor, okay? And if you look at honor, we see honor in the Army. We see honor at the top of the Navy. We see honor at the top of the Coast Guard. And in the Air Force, what we say is integrity. So integrity from the perspective of core values and honor are synonymous. And the other common core values that you see up there. Go ahead. Respect. Okay, all across. Respect. Okay, that word doesn't show up in all 4 columns, but it's certainly a common core value. So when you talk about veterans, they do share a set of core values: honor, integrity, commitment to duty, courage. When we talk about military, no matter whether you spend 4 years or 30 years, there comes a time when you have to leave the military. I'm going to give you talk to you a little bit about my experience. I actually left the military 3 times in my life. I joined the military in 1970 during the Vietnam War, and I got off of active duty, was released from active duty in 1973 as the war wound down. But when I got off of active duty, I decided to go into the reserve program. So I left the active duty, and I joined the reserve program. That's where I met this young man here, Colonel Von Bargen. He became my mentor in the reserve program. While I was serving in the reserves during Desert Storm, anybody know what Desert Storm, Operation Desert Storm was all about back in 1990, before your age? Go ahead. Say it again. Yeah, it was the first Gulf War, okay? It was a little bit before the final takedown. But back in 1990, Saddam decided to invade Kuwait, and the United States, under the older President Bush, formed a coalition of countries, and we invaded back in 1990. Part of that required 500,000 troops to be deployed. So my squadron was activated for 6 months, and at the end of that period, I was released. So that was my second time of being released from active duty. And then after I got old, in 2001, I retired, and I officially retired, and guess what? I'm still serving. I'm retired and still serving as an Air Force Academy liaison officer and coming out to try to educate people like you on the importance of honoring veterans and their family members. So this gets to my point. Why should we honor veterans? We talked about some of the examples of their sacrifice, of their service, and their sacrifice, and their family sacrifices, and our own sacrifices. Something that is important to bring up is I was not a combat officer. I did serve in Vietnam for a while because I was flying. I was a navigator on a C-141 airplane, and we would fly from McGuire Air Force Base right down the road here. It's called the Joint Base McGuire-Dix-Lakehurst now. But we used to fly from here over the Pacific Ocean and in and out of Vietnam, delivering cargo, bringing patients home on air medical evacuation missions. But I never really served in combat. And it turns out that most service members don't serve in combat. Okay, most service members play a support role, and that's something you need to keep in mind. Everybody isn't a war hero, and you don't have to be honored for your service. But they all were involved in serving our country, and something I'd like to mention, and I know we have our social studies teachers here in charge today, and so they're our history buffs. But one of the things we want to do is make sure that we recognize and appreciate freedoms and the way of life that people take for granted today. I think a lot of us take it for granted, and it's something that we need to be aware of. And one of the things that we need to do is to learn from tragic mistakes of the past so that they don't recur in the future. My 10 minutes is about up, and what I like to do is, when I close, I like to give a couple personal anecdotes. One of them is a favorite quote that I have, and it has to do with being grateful. And it's happiness is not what makes us grateful, it's gratefulness that makes us happy. And that goes back to attitude, okay? Happiness is not what makes us grateful, It's gratefulness that makes us happy. Does that make sense to anybody? Tell me what you think. Somebody just said yes. A lot of people think, go ahead. All right. And one lesson that I've learned in life as a basic airman, as a crew member, as an officer responsible for a squadron of airmen, as a civilian, patience is not free. It's earned through the trials of life. Wherever you are in your life, okay, you need to learn how to be patient with yourself and others. There are some things that only pain can teach you. And even though you're young now, I think you know what I'm talking about. Pride, humility, and patience will prod you towards excellence in your life as long as you're patient with yourself and others. You want to learn from your mistakes. You learn from others' mistakes as well. That's the best way to learn from mistakes. Learn from someone else's mistakes. And from a leader perspective or even a team member perspective, it's not always easy, but you want to try to be tough and also be fair with the members around you, with the members of your team and the people who you work with. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you again for inviting me to come here today, and I'm going to turn it back over to my buddy, Colonel von Bargen.
As we have in prior years, do we have the other mic? Do I have it? I'm going to go down the line here and just have each one of our veterans stand and give their name and introduce themselves. And just, you have 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, I have a huge man in the back. He has a big hook, and he will drag you off the stage. Command Sergeant Major Walker got this man for me. All joking aside. You have a pretty good cross-section here of people from different times who've served at different times, and they really have a great story. At the Armed Forces Heritage Museum, we have a website, and if you go to afhmus.org, you can see some of the interviews that we have. The lady you see sitting here is Sylvia Brooks, and I'm going to tell her story for her. Her husband, Howard Brooks, was in the Navy in the Second World War. He was on the cruiser Houston in 1942, right after Pearl Harbor. The cruiser was sunk. Howard became a prisoner of the Japanese, and for 3.5 years he was a slave laborer. She knows more about the cruiser Houston and the events of the U.S. Navy than any woman alive. So she's a special lady, Sylvia Brooks.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Brooks. 3 years ago, my husband and I, we always came to help out on Veterans Day. But 3 years ago, he came for the last time. And I remember Bob, my husband was in the middle, and he skipped him. I knew why, because he was the only World War II veteran, and he was a POW, and he told him the story that he made chief warrant officer, and he endured 3.5 years with the Japanese, and you gave him a beautiful standing ovation, and then the kids came up to shake his hand, and some of the girls hugged him, And that was the biggest day he remembered until he passed 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. This is Bill Chapman. I'm not going to introduce everybody, but this man I have to introduce. Stand up. He's not a very big man, is he? But he told me a story that's unbelievable. You going to tell it or am I going to tell it? You know what a kamikaze airplane is? You're Japanese. It's where they took the airplane with bomb in it and attacked the ships. Bill was in the South Pacific, just near the end of the war. And a kamikaze airplane hit the carrier Franklin. Not only did it hit the carrier, it went in through the hole and down into the bowels of the ship, and it blew up right in the middle of the ship. There was an inferno on the ship. The engines were knocked out. He was on the cruiser Pittsburgh alongside. Another cruiser came by, the LaSalle, and they saved the ship. What he did was absolutely amazing. He said to me, he said, you know, I used to work out with the Marines and I had a lot of upper body strength. And there, picture this, you're on the ship and you got the side of the ship and there are sailors who have jumped off the ship because it's a towering inferno. And they're in the water and they want to get these sailors aboard and they're doing their best to pull the sailors out of the sea. They grabbed the Marines, grabbed him by his ankles, hung him over the side, and he pulled sailors out of the water and saved their lives. An amazing man. You want to say anything?
Bill Chapman. I was on the USS Pittsburgh, Battleship Maryland, and I spent a month on the New Jersey, and I was in Okinawa, Iwo, the airstrikes on Tokyo, and we took the atomic bomb out on the carrier to my port side, but nobody knew it at that time. And I'm thankful I'm here today, enjoying myself and you nice people from Shawnee, my favorite high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hi, I've been in the Navy. I was in the Navy for 6 years, from 1952 to 1959. I started out in the seagoing Navy, but then transferred to naval aviation. And I was, my last tour of duty was a transport squadron in Morocco, and we flew all over the Mediterranean, supporting the Sixth Fleet and doing a lot of humanitarian flights, rescuing American citizens out of war zones, and also, basically providing some medical help to different parts when different disasters in that part of the world. Thank you.
Now, this is Command Sergeant Major now. Listen up. You okay?
Yeah. Good afternoon. I am retired Command Sergeant Major Peter Walker from Jacksonville, Florida, a Gator. As we say down there, don't let the Gator beat you to the pond, because you got problems if you do. I came in the military right out of high school. I graduated high school, and I entered the service 10 June of 1950. I retired 31 October of 1976. Of that 26 years, I got over 18 and a half years overseas. I liked it. I enjoyed my service. I met some beautiful people. And as I told the classes today, I met some beautiful people which you can meet right out here, and you can meet some alpha hotels right out here also. Okay? I got a chance to travel, and I enjoyed it. Would I do it again? Yeah, I'll do it again. Thank you.
And we're going to hear from the Navy.
My name is Ron Scheller. I served in the U.S. Navy from 65 to 69. I served on the USS Ticonderoga, and I was in fighter squadrons 101st, 84, and 87, and I was in Vietnam in 1969.
Hi guys, my name's Anthony Kroll. Obviously, I'm much younger than these guys. My military service has just begun. I've been doing this for about 3.5 years. This is my first base. Been deployed once. Gonna deploy again, and yeah, it's been fun so far.
My name is William Mead. I'm served in the United States Marine Corps from July of 1971 to July of 1975. I served as Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, Company Radio Man in Vietnam during the 1972 Easter Offensive. I continued on in the Marine Corps. I also served during the Yom Kippur War in 1973. And for the rest of the time, I spent the last 2 years at Camp Lejeune. I'm honorably discharged, and I received my rank of sergeant through meritorious promotion. Thank you.
Hello? Oh, okay. There you go. I'm retired from the Army National Guard, New Jersey Army National Guard. I'm a CW2, Chief Warrant Officer, Manish Karnik. My son goes over here. He's a freshman, so don't pick on him. So I served since 1993 till about 2011, 2012. Part of Operation Enduring Freedom. And I love what I did, and I love the camaraderie, and I would love to do it all over again if my body kind of gives me, if I could, I would.
My name is Mike Deere. I did 24 years in the Air Force, retired in 2011. I was an aircraft loadmaster. I flew, I've told a couple of classrooms, I've been to over 130 countries. Vermont is the only state that I need, and I have been to all 7 continents. So I've been involved in everything since Panama in 1989, and I, like these guys, would do it all over again. I was just sitting here looking around the room, and I just realized something. You know, everybody around here talks about small town. I grew up in North Dakota. This is how small my town is. There's more people in this room than were in my hometown. There's more people on this stage than my graduating class. I had 12. So whenever somebody tells you they're from a small town, I'm from a small town.
My name is Jerry SKORCH. I served in the United States Navy right out of high school at 17, 1961 to 64. I was aboard a destroyer escort in the Cuban blockade of 1962. And I'm proud of my service, I'm proud of my country, and I'm proud of my fellow veterans. God bless America.
Tell them about what you're doing with the cremains. Tell them what you're doing with the cremains.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Colonel. I've told some of the classes today, too, that even though I only served the Navy for 4 years, I'm actually more involved in the military today. I'm the chaplain of my American Legion post. I'm chaplain of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 899. And from that, there's a spin-off that we've discovered. There was ashes of a veteran that were cremated and never claimed. He was sitting in a garage behind a funeral home. And we said we had to do something about that. We had to give him a military burial. And we found out if there's one, could there be more? And that was back in 2009. We have formed New Jersey's Mission of Honor for Cremains of American Veterans since that time, and all Vietnam veterans, and we have buried 263 veterans that were abandoned here in the state of New Jersey since then. We have our own color guard, we have our own rifle squad, we have our own bugler, we even have our own bagpiper, and we lay our veterans to rest with full military discipline, and it is my honor to serve that. The 263 that we've laid to rest is the bad news. The good news is this, that through our research, and one of our volunteers is a genealogist, he's like Ancestry.com, if he can't find them, they don't exist. We have returned to family members the ashes of 316 veterans to fully bring to circle and closure the background and lives of their relative veterans. So that's New Jersey's Mission of Honor, and I'm proud to serve as the vice chairman and the state chaplain. Every veteran that we buried has his own eulogy, and it is an honor to still serve our veterans.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill GERSHEN. I was in the United States Army. My rank was Specialist 4th Class, and I'm a Cold War veteran. I was stationed in Germany from 1960 to 62. Thank you.
As the anchor man, this ought to be a Navy man down here, but I served in the Air Force. My name is Thomas HEPLER. I was in the United States Air Force from 1950 through 1954. My most significant assignment was headquarters United States Air Force in Europe, was assigned to North Africa, Casablanca. We ran an intelligence operation using the state-of-the-art IBM equipment. Thank you very much.
As you can see, it's a pretty good cross-section of service, all different service, different years, different eras, and it's so good to have you, right up there in the front, and you carry on the banner, and we're very proud of you. Good seeing you. If you would like to come up and visit with the veterans up here, we'd sure like to see you. Thank you very much.